All right, last time we talked through how our basic Bible understanding and Bible principles affect what we expect the government to do. Let's see who remembers. We talked about all men being sinners. How does that affect our government, or what does that cause us to want the government to do? Only one per person. You want this one? You want to wait? Oh, okay. Wow.
It has to punish those evildoers?
Yeah, you expect the government to restrain that sin. And we're naturally sinners. That needs to be restrained somehow. Talked about individuality and how we're individuals created by God and have value because we're from God, because we're created by God. What does that affect in our government? Go ahead and get out of the way.
That we have rights directly from God, and that on an individual level we're more important than the government.
Yeah, we take precedence over the government. It's us that creates the government, not the government that creates us. That's the flow of force. I'm going to try to get through everybody, so you might not want to wait until you're the only one left, and I'll come up with that really vicious question just for you. All right, somebody give me a characteristic of somebody who is self-governed. This one's real cut and dry. I gave you a list of 4. Frank? Self-reliance. Courage, and what do you mean by that?
Being willing to do what's right even when it's not popular.
Okay. I was going to say, still believe that gay marriage is immoral and wrong and just flat out insane, despite the current trend in America. All right, a lot of our politicians are not that. They very much follow the wind. Megan, before your arm flies off. Okay.
You know what's going on around them.
Okay. And why would that be important? It just is. Okay. It's one of those self-evident truths. Why do you need to know what's going on around you? What are you going to have to do next year?
So,
Or, I'm sorry, this year.
so you know how to vote and stuff.
And stuff, yes, vote and stuff. All right, who wants the last one?
Police training.
Okay. What is that? Seatbelts?
Yeah.
Child safety locks? What do you mean by that? That's all you have?
Yeah.
Oh, restraint.
You restrain yourself.
Okay, you do it yourself. You hold yourself back. It's not just, you're not just like a cow that's going to go as far as you can until it hits a fence. you restrain yourself. Okay, private property. Is private property a biblical idea? Everyone's saying yes? Okay, why? Anything that points us in that direction? Don't let people cheat. Either direction. Jacob's raising a different hand. So that's close. Did you answer, Sarah? Okay. You read the book. That's what you did.
Okay. Thou shalt not kill. You can't take people's life because they're private property. No. Okay.
Thou shalt not steal works. Even thou shalt not kill, it kind of works too, because we do have, we do own our life. So, all right, thou shalt not steal. There's passages about killing people who are stealing your stuff. There's parables in the New Testament talk about the idea it's mine. I can do what I want to with it. And Ananias and Sapphira. There's lots of places in the Bible where private property is upheld as a biblical idea. So, the point of that was really just a lot of those basic Bible principles do affect the way you think about government, all right? And it's very important for us as Christians to recognize that our Bible philosophy, it affects what we think about marriage, how we train our children, and also should affect, and really does affect, we might not recognize it sometimes, how we think about our government. All right, today the first thing I want to do, at least, is talk about the proper biblical form of government. Is there any indication in the Bible about how the government should be organized? Should we have a dictator? I've heard people say that the best form of government is a benevolent dictator, a nice one. All right. Jacob is all for that as long as it's him. Right? All right. Benevolent dictator. Should it be a pure democracy? Everybody gets to vote, and we sing Kumbaya around the fire at night, and just one big happy. Except usually in pure democracies, the fire at night usually is some enemy of the state getting executed that you're singing Kumbaya around. So it doesn't go so well. How should we organize this thing? Let me go and give you. I think we can get at least four ideas about this form of government. Let me give you those lists of those 4 things, and then we can look at some passages. I think it's easier to know at least what I'm looking for in these passages rather than you have to draw it out just completely out of view. Blue. All right, the first I have on my list is it should be written. A written documents, written laws and rules. You may know what we call that main document that describes how the structure of government works for a certain country. Somebody who didn't answer yet?
The Constitution?
Constitution, all right, that type of written in that sense. All right, another idea we're going to get is different levels of government or a federated system, national, state, county, city, etc. A federated system, different levels. A representative system, not a pure democracy, but a representative system where the people do have a say through their representative, but not a pure democracy. And then a fourth idea is 3 separate branches of government. In our Constitution, last semester we talked about the executive, judicial, and legislative branches. They're delineated in 3 separate things in our Constitution, but just that idea of those 3 kind of departments of government, we can even see that at least alluded to and recognized in the Bible. So written document or some sort of constitutional system, differentiated levels or a federated system, representative system, and 3 different branches of government. All right, let's look at some passages and I'll let you guys read some of these. As long as you have a KJV, if you have some other version. Sorry. Well, just download another one real quick. I'm sure you can. All right, let's see here. Exodus 18 through 26. We don't have to read the whole thing. I think through about 20 or so should be sufficient. If you just love reading. I'll let this count for your question if you want. If you haven't read yet, or if you haven't answered a question yet, you could volunteer to read. Okay, we have a volunteer. This is Exodus 18. This is the story of Moses' father-in-law coming to see him. Always a painful experience.
18 through 26.
I don't think we need to read the whole thing. I'll stop you, but yeah. I've got that written down as a whole passage, but...
Okay. Exodus 18:18. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. Let
me stop right there real quick. Before this point, Moses handled everything. Jacob enjoyed getting a little spat about, your notebook that Jacob stepped on, and he won't reimburse you for it. Yeah, he would do that too. Not notebook, computer, notebook, the old-fashioned kind of paper. I'll show you a picture. Google it. You get a little spat over something minor. You went to see Moses, right? Wow, would I ever go see... I don't think I would deal with any spats at all if you had to go see our current president. It's okay. You can have the notebook. I don't care. But he was handling it all. And that's where it's talking about this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. It was in governmental terms here, this is one level of government. There's no levels underneath him. All right? Go ahead.
Verse 20.
Uh-huh.
And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons, and it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee.
Okay, I think that's sufficient there. You see, I know you're familiar with the advice that Jethro gives here, but tells them to get people from amongst the children of Israel and describes them, able men, fear God, etc., and then set up this structure of some over 1,000, some over 100, and what's the other numbers here? Excuse me, 150s and down to 10s. We get a federated system at different levels of government. And the minor things get handled here and the less minor things here and et cetera, and it bumps up a level. And if the guys that are rulers over 1,000 can't handle a certain situation, then it gets bumped up to Moses. All right, so we have that idea represented here in the advice that is given to Moses at this point. Let's flip over to Deuteronomy 1. We see this same passage, same incident alluded to. There's really no indication here about how these men are chosen. It says, moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men. It doesn't really describe how that happens, if Moses went and picked them all or how that happened. But Deuteronomy 1 rehashes this a little bit. Who'd like to read here, starting in verse 9? Yes, Tamar.
And I spake unto you at that time, saying, I am not able to bear you myself alone. The Lord your God hath multiplied you, and behold, ye are this day as the stars of heaven for the multitude. The Lord God of your fathers make you 1,000 times so many more as ye are, and bless you, and as he hath promised you. How can I myself alone bear your cumbrance and your burden and your strife? Take you wise men and understanding and known among your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. And ye answered me and said, the thing which thou hast spoken is good for us to do.
Okay, I think that's sufficient there. Here you can see a little bit of indication about how this took place. Moses didn't go out and grab people. He told them, you guys take some people, you guys pick some people and bring them to me, and I'll organize this thing. The people were making the choice here, is the point I want to get here. It wasn't Moses imposing these people upon them. The people brought them to Moses, and he organized the government that way. So we have there that representative idea, the people participating through their representatives in the government, and also, again, that federated system. All right, let's look in Leviticus 4. Everybody's favorite books of the Bible, I know. Leviticus 4, 13 through 15. Who hasn't answered or read yet, just so I know who I'm waiting for? You want to read Leviticus? It's great. It talks about 13, 14, 15. This is Leviticus 4, 13 through 15. It's talking about a sin offering. So, go ahead.
And if the whole congregation of Israel sin through ignorance, and the thing be hid from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done somewhat against any of the commandments of the Lord concerning these things which should not be done, and are guilty. When the sin which they have sinned against it is known, then the congregation shall offer a young bullock for the sin, and bring him before the tabernacle of the congregation.
All right, before you finish up there, who's familiar with the sin offering? If you're bringing a sin offering, I'm sorry, that's a really vague question. If you're bringing a sin offering for your sin, you'd bring that thing to the temple and you'd place your hand on the animal's head, symbolizing that sin being taken on by that animal. Okay, here we have the whole congregation sinning. Is every man in the congregation supposed to come by? This animal is going to be bald by the time they offer it. How does that happen? Okay, look in verse 15.
And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands upon the head of the bullock before the Lord, and the bullock shall be killed before the Lord.
Okay, so you can see there, it didn't require in this case every individual person to do it. The elders that were representing them were able to do it. So again, that idea of representation there, even in the sacrificial system. All right, 1 Samuel 8. 4 through 6. Robert and Christina. Christina got it. Or do you want to wait for a question? All right, so this is 8, 4 through 6. I have it. This is the story about Saul coming in as the king.
Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel and to Ramah, and said unto them, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all nations.
Before you keep going, if you ever go to your leader at work or something, a really good way to start the conversation is, behold, you're old. Just really starts it off well. Hey, old man. So, all right, here we have Samuel and the elders coming, and I think you know what's coming, but they asked for a king. Go ahead, Christina.
But this thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord.
Okay, so we have Israel here asking for a king, but it's through the representatives. It's not like literally every man of Israel was there outside of the tent or something talking to him. It was the elders coming, representing the entire group of Israel. 2 Samuel chapter 2. And here we'll look at 2 Samuel 2, verse 4, and then 5, verse 3. Is it just Robert left? All right, Robert. 2 Samuel 2, 4.
The men of Judah came, there they anointed David king over the house of Judah, and they told David, saying that the men of Jabesh Gilead would they buried.
Okay, so here we have the men of Judah, it's saying. Here it looks like every single man in Judah comes to do this. Look in 5 verse 3. We'll let Robert read again since he only got one. He got cheated.
So all the elders of Israel came to the king to Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel.
Okay, so here we have the elders being talked about. So the indication is that all the men of Israel were represented in these elders when it came. So the point is representation. We can see that principle several different places in the Bible, from the way God set up the structure of the government for the Jews, to when they asked for a king, to the sacrificial system. We can see that multiple places, a representative form of government. All right, let's go to, unless there's questions, Isaiah 33:22. Someday I'll just print all of these into my notes and won't have to flip with you, but this at least forces me to slow down so that you can find it. Isaiah 33:22. Here we're going to see the three different branches of government alluded to. I'll just read it. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king. He will save us. Can anybody match those up with the terms we use for the three branches of government? Executive, legislative, judicial. Which one would the judge be? Okay, very good. Lawgiver, legislative, and our king, the executive. So you can see all three alluded to there. Now if you're thinking, wow, they're all combined in one person. That's true. Right, freedom, this is God. Right? He doesn't have a sin nature. He's perfect. He can do all three and not abuse it. But at least we get all three of them mentioned out there. So again, we can just see these ideas alluded to. So it would make sense to at least think about dividing up the government in those three branches, since God splits them up that way here. All right. Thus far, for sure, we've covered the different levels, the representative system, and the three branches here with Isaiah. We haven't talked about the written documentation, the Constitution. Can anybody think of a biblical idea for that? I say a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but...
Would it be because the Bible was written
we have a Bible. When God was wanting to describe to us how to be saved and his plan of salvation, all that, he gives us a written document. You can think of the story of the Jews coming out of Israel and the law being written down. All right, so everything written down, even the kings, it's alluded to, that they have to read the law and look back at this written documentation. So we have that, the idea of it being written down, I think, fairly well handled. Okay, so some sort of written constitutional system, different levels, representative system, and then the three branches. Okay, questions on that? Don't worry about the fact that you're on camera and your voice will be recorded and put on YouTube by the end of the day. It's no big deal. I wonder if having you guys read is going to create these really awkward blank spots with no noise. So we'll have to get a microphone and pass it around. So, all right, we've got some time. I want to start into kind of a companion thought with this. Here we have the proper form of government. I would like to talk about one particular one of those parts in a little more detail and talk about federalism, the different branches, the different layers of government, national, state, local would be the way we've got them split up primarily. I'd like to talk about it a little bit today and look at what the Constitution says about it. And then, as I say, tomorrow, whenever we come back, Friday, we'll look at a little bit of history at how we've gotten to the point where we are today, where this morning I heard a report about Congress debating changing the requirements for public schools across the nation. They're going to, I forget, allow more sodium and, a little more salt, so you can put salt in your fries and stuff like that. But here we have Congress trying to decide how the kids in Chesterton eat their lunch. How do we get to that point where everything is consolidated in Congress so much? And we've, to a great extent, we've just come to expect this. Of course Congress should regulate that. And the answer is, of course, no, they shouldn't. I mean, they have no business regulating it. It's a local issue. So we'll look at a little bit of history of how we get to this point and hopefully understand a little bit of the mechanics of how that happened. But today, primarily, just talk about what federalism is and look at the Constitution briefly and what it says about it. So, okay, first point I have is just what is federalism? What do we mean by that term? Let me give you just a very generic definition. A system in which government power is divided into two or more levels. A system in which government power is divided into two or more levels. We have a Chesterton police force. There's a sheriff's office that handles the county. There's state police that handles the state. Then there's the FBI and other agencies that handle the entire country. Other law enforcement agencies like the Bureau of Land Management and others that have armed security and all kinds of crazy things. But they handle the whole entire nation. So we have different levels there. All right, and that was just law enforcement. We could talk about the legislative bodies, Congress, state legislatures, city councils, county councils. A system in which government power is divided up into two or more levels. Well, we've talked about the executive and legislative. We can also talk about the judicial being split up into different branches. We have the Supreme Court and all the federal courts, state courts, county courts, city courts. We've got that. So anyway, that's the idea. A system in which government power is divided into two or more levels. Let me give you, still here with just what is meant by federalism, a couple of other terms to at least mention as we look at the basic definition, then we'll look at what the Constitution says. The first term is kind of the anti-federal system, but unitary system. That's a system where all the power is held in one central location. That's where we're heading in our country. All power is held in a central national government. It's extremely unpractical, just for the same reason that Moses couldn't do it. Our government can't do it. It doesn't work. You know, this gigantic behemoth of a bureaucracy, and you end up with what we have. All right, so a unitary, all the power is held in one place. All right, the next one is a confederation. Confederation. Here we have a union of equal states. That's not a very good way to state it, but let's start there. A union of equal states. Or maybe another way to think of it is a union where the second level takes precedent over the national level. Right? It would be where the individual states are more powerful than the national level. Can anybody think of a time in history where we see a confederation? There's at least two in our history. Did everybody answer? No, so I can't embarrass anybody. If you do have another hand, give me one, and if Frank wants the other one, he can have it.
Articles of Confederation.
Articles of Confederation, the document that first formed a national government for us. From American history, I know you remember that it was too weak, that central government did not have enough power and authority to do what it needed to. We mentioned how they couldn't collect taxes, couldn't raise an army, and things like that. They could request states, is the way it really boiled down to it, but they couldn't really force it. Do you know the other one? Okay. Anybody else?
Would it be during the Civil War?
Yeah, the Southern Confederacy. They set up a confederacy. So that system where the second tier, the state level, is stronger really than the top level. Okay? And then the last one, and here we have a little bit of duplication with terminology, a federal system. We're talking about federalism, but a federal system. And this is a system where both the central government and local and state governments both hold significant power. It's not that the national government hogs all the power or the state governments hog all the power. Both of them have significant power. This is the way America was founded. We still are pretty much just a federal system, although the central government is sucking up into their vortex more and more power and authority. A federal system, both the central and the local and state governments hold significant power. That would be the system that Moses set up there on the advice of his father-in-law. The local, all the different layers down had significant authority, and he also had authority. It wasn't like he became insignificant. Okay, so a federal system. Both have significant power. Now let's quickly look at how the Constitution divides this power up. If we think of all the government powers as some big object, and we're going to slice it into pieces, how is this done by our Constitution? Okay, the first point here is the national government, the top layer, is given delegated powers, or sometimes the term enumerated powers, a finite listing of things that they can do. Can anybody think about where this is in the Constitution? If you're here last semester, we read the entire Constitution. You may not remember the article and section and all that kind of good stuff, but maybe describe where we see a primary place where we have all of the things the government can do, the national government can do. It's in Article 1, which deals with Congress. Nobody remembers? I think it's one whole sentence. It starts off, the Congress shall have power to, and we see this whole listing of to this, to that, to this, to that. So we have all the things Congress can do. Anybody remember that listing? One person? My complete failure? My handy dandy pocket Constitution. Everybody should have one. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, to borrow money, to regulate commerce, to establish an uniform rule of naturalization, to coin money, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting. Remember that list? Okay. there we have a list, a delegated or enumerated set of things they can do. This is it. That's all Congress can do, nothing beyond that. So there is some legitimate room for a little bit of wiggle about what is included because of the last one, the one that says, to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. Right, so Congress is given the power to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas. So that necessary and proper clause says Congress can pass a law creating some agency to hunt down the pirates and bring them to justice. Right? It doesn't mean that each member of Congress is going to give a certain segment of water that they have to patrol and stop piracy on. So it gives them the authority to pass laws to get these things done. So that does give a little bit of leeway there, but just a little bit. Right? That is used to just blow away this list, and that was not the intent. So, okay, so delegated, an enumerated list of things. It is not up to Congress to get up in the morning and just begin to be creative and think, what could I do today? What fun things can I do? That is not within their jurisdiction or within their right. The Supreme Court has ruled that. We looked at some of the cases, the one about the interstate commerce case, where the Supreme Court ruled that any human activity that has an ultimate impact in more than one state can be regulated under the Commerce Clause, which, I mean, you go and throw a pebble across the state line, you're then subject to regulation from Congress. I mean, really a crazy definition. And those who dissented on that opinion said that this means basically Congress can do whatever they want to, and that is what it boils down to. All right, so, but the Constitution itself gives us this delegated, enumerated list of things. Okay? The second point is that states have what are called reserved powers. Whatever is not taken by name and given to the national government is left to the states. That is implied in the document itself, and it's also made very explicit in one of the amendments. Amendment 10 says this: the powers not delegated to the United States nor prohibited by it to the states, so the powers not delegated to the United States are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. It's a reserved list. So if something's not given by name, in particular to the national level, it's left to the states. All right. School lunches. Is that in the list? Does anybody remember reading that one? I didn't read the whole list. Congress had power to, you had to say it kind of in government speak, provide nutritious and tasty meals for school children across the nation? Or, what's that?
Must be healthy.
No, that's the nutritious part. Kind of broccoli and... it's not there, okay? Congress has never given the authority to do that. It's not there. Congress has never given authority to do anything involving education, period. It's not there. All right, so whatever is not explicitly given to Congress is left to the states. It's a reserved list. Okay, intentionally, the states don't have a listing of things that they get to do. Congress and the national government has a listing of things that they get to do. And anything else that comes up is left to the states. Okay, and we have here, if we go back to our definitions, the federal, both the central and the states have significant power. Both of them do. Now, we have gotten to the point where the states have been pummeled into subjection to the national government. We're going to talk about that next period, about how that happens. But at least constitutionally, both of them have significant power. If the state of Indiana, since Congress is giving no authority to regulate lunches, if the state of Indiana or the Chesterton Town Board maybe says, in our public schools or in any school in Chesterton, at lunch, there has to be at least, how many grams of fat would be a lot? 40 grams of fat in the meal and 2,000 calories. And, whatever some astronomical amount of sodium is, have to salt everything heavily. That's the minimum. Or you're not allowed to leave the cafeteria until you consume that much. It's up to this. It would be up to that location to decide that. Congress should have absolutely nothing to say about it. All right, absolutely nothing to say. If the people in that city don't like it, then they should do something about it. They elected those people. If you followed Ted Cruz talking about New York and the New York values, and I didn't really catch the whole word, and Donald Trump was bashing about it, and Ted Cruz apologizes, something to this effect: I apologize for the abysmal leaders you've had through the years. Listed some of the really liberal leaders that they've had, and I apologize for all the damage they've done to the city. And it was those people that elected them, and if they don't like what they're doing, they can fix them. Right? The national level has absolutely nothing to say. At least they should not. Right? Today, they do. Right? They are the ones deciding how much salt our kids get to eat here in Chesterton. Mr. Right is not regulated by Congress, if you're ever wondering. When you get the 3 flavors of fat salted down on your plate, corn dogs, French fries, and some other fried objects, that's your lunch. He is not regulated by Congress, so it does taste good. All right, so we have the national level delegated. State level for us is reserved powers. Whatever's not given to the national is left to the states. And then the last thing to mention here is the people have whatever powers left over. If there are certain restrictions on the states, but if the states don't regulate something, and the county doesn't do it, and the city doesn't do it, then it's left up to you to decide. If there's no regulation in your town about how large your fences can be, then you make it as big as you want. But if they have some regulation about no more than 6 feet, then the city has picked that. But whatever's left over comes to the people. The national has a listing of things. The other is reserved, is the primary thing. All right, let's do one more thing, and then we'll tie it up today. I've kind of already answered this a little bit, but which, in our system, which of these levels is supreme? Who takes precedence, the national or the state? And it's kind of a twofold answer here. Really, the answer is both. Right? The areas that are given to the national government, they are supreme. All right? They get to choose a uniform rule of naturalization, how somebody that's not a citizen becomes a citizen. If they pick a rule, how that happens, the state of Indiana can't make their own that supersedes it. The national takes precedent. Right? So both are supreme in their particular areas. Right? So the national supreme is supreme in that listing of things, and then the states are supreme in anywhere else. Anything else that's not on the list, they are supreme, and the national level shouldn't and doesn't constitutionally have any authority to say at all what they do in those other areas. So originally in our system, both are supreme. The Constitution alludes to that, or at least enforces it for the things that are given to Congress. The Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and treaties, etc., shall be the supreme law of the land. All right, just to make sure that the areas that are given to the national level, when they make a decision or pass a law, that is supreme. By implication, everything else is completely up to the states, and since they have no authority to do anything, the states are supreme in those areas. So really the answer is both. Right? The term that's used to describe that is called dual federalism, where both are supreme in their particular areas. Today, our system is morphed, and we have what's referred to as a cooperative federalist position or federalist government. And that's where the states are forced to cooperate with the national government. The national level really has taken a very dominant position, and the states are forced to comply, like school lunches. I mean, think of the insanity of that. And the states across the country are going to comply. And part of the thing that should come to your mind is why? Why would they comply? This is none of their business. We'll talk about that. But we've gotten to the point where we really have a cooperative system. Constitutionally, it's a dual federal system where both are supreme in their particular realms. We've gotten to the position now where the federal dominates everywhere, and the states are forced to cooperate with pretty much whatever they decide, which is not the original intent. So, all right, questions about federalism up to that point? Tomorrow we'll look at a little bit of the history of how this change takes place, and to talk about a little bit of the current situation and problems that come out of this, but we can do that tomorrow. You are dismissed.